Committee of the Whole. Tonight is Monday, January 6th, the time being 7 p.m. The meeting is called to order. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Kirk Detman will lead it.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Thank you, Kirk. All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Arnett.
Here.
Alderwoman Erickson. Here. Alderman Fritsch.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson. Here. Alderman Kreinbrink.
Here.
Alderman Lilbrandt is absent. Alderman Robinson.
Here.
Alderman White Cotton.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. We'll move on. Regarding my report, I had just a couple issues that will actually come up on the agenda. They have to do with the Volunteer Action Center, and they have to do with some gaming concerns that were brought to my attention. All right, the attorney's not here at this point. She'll cover hers either in the next meeting or later on. Clerk's report.
I really don't have a report this evening, but I do want everyone to give it a little thought. Vendor trucks, the permits are due for renewal. This is the time if we want to change anything. I'd like to have that discussed at the next meeting. I know there are some trucks that.
Yeah, we've always had Walgreens, we've always had FNBO. This year, we did not have Old National, but we've had Meadowvale, we've had the airport, all those properties, and Midwestern Concrete and all that. So we've had quite a few this time. So, but we did object to all of them, and we'll see how they turn out. We chose not to necessarily, because there's so many, we didn't think trying to do appraisals on all of them was going to be appropriate, so we're going to try and work that out and see. But at least we're trying to see what we can do with everything. So it is unfortunate because, you know, when they lower that, it really comes back and is on the back of the taxpayers. And that's why we're trying so hard to make sure that we're making sure we keep the businesses paying a portion of it as much as possible.
Thanks, sorry, thanks.
Okay, anyone else have questions for Jeff? All right, moving on to department reports, emergency management, Tony Eberly.
Reminder that tomorrow is the first Tuesday of the month, outdoor warning siren testing at 10 o'clock. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Chief Senni?
Just to start off with the events we had the last couple of weeks, Ivic came and visited us twice, where they got a tour of the police department, and I spoke to them for a little bit, and then they got to use the simulator. And then we attended a lunch and learn. Our Police Explorer applications are going to be coming out later on this week. We're looking to have our first meeting on March the 15th. Sergeant Eisberg, he is going to be starting staff in command next Monday. He's going to be on a 2-week program where he attends class for 2 weeks, then he's off for 2 weeks, with a graduation date of May the 23rd of 2025. Sergeant Whitecotton, at the next meeting, he'll be looking to present his actual staff study that he did at his staffing and command class, which was our staffing model. So he'll be presenting that at the next council meeting. Officer Lundstein is in his 3rd week of field training, having fun. Officer Vega, he is returning to work this Wednesday, the 8th. He's got a lot of administrative work to do and get him reacclimated, and hopefully going to have him up and running solo on the 17th of this month. The Police Commission is conducting interviews for the police applicants. They had interviewed this evening, and then they're conducting another set of interviews. I believe it's going to be about 18 interviews on Saturday. At that point, they'll establish 2 lists. They'll establish their lateral list, and then they'll establish the initial entry-level eligibility list. And then those people on the initial eligibility list will have the ability to apply for any military points that they may have, and then we'll be able to post a final list hopefully by the end of the month, first or second week of February from there. Our Christmas, New Year's Eve campaign ended. We worked a total of 23 hours. Just want to note the following that was done during that time. We issued 16 actual citations, and what I mean by that is there's a monetary fine involved in that. Of those 16, 11 of them were for speeding. There was 2 DUI-related citations, an expired registration, a stop sign, and improper lane of usage. And we also did have a DUI arrest that came out of that. That was during a 5-hour block that was directed directly towards looking for impaired drivers. And then we also wrote 20 warning citations during that time frame. So essentially, we wrote 26 violations during that time frame. Correction, 36. Our next traffic campaign is actually going to be, it's called the Super Bowl campaign, and that runs from February 3rd to February 6th. We have 4 hours that are directed towards the traffic enforcement, looking for speeding, seatbelts, distracted driving, and we have another 5 hours that are dedicated strictly to looking for impaired drivers on that. And then the next grant period, the grant is due in mid-March for the campaign. That'll start in October 1st of this year. So we'll be applying for that grant again too, coming up. Our new staffing starts on the 11th, so all shifts will have 1 sergeant assigned to them, and then 3 of the 4 shifts will have 2 additional officers. So each shift will have essentially 3 officers, with the exception of 1 shift, which will just be due to our staffing, our opening right now. That shift will eventually be staffed in, should be March, when Officer Lundstein is released from field training. He will go to that shift, and then every shift will have 3 officers assigned to it. The next Coffee with the Cop is going to be on the 29th at 8 a.m. at Dearborn's. We're going to be doing Coffee with the Cop, Pop with the Cop quarterly this year. We were doing them every other month. Each quarter, one of the sergeants is going to pick where the location will be. So I'm anticipating the Pop with the Cop will be on the midnight shift sergeant shifts, and the Coffee with the Cop will be during the day shift sergeant shifts. And then also on that note too, the chiefs meetings, instead of being every other month, they're going to also move to a quarterly basis. The first one we'll be looking to do in March. Our yearly department meeting is going to be on the 17th of February. During that meeting, kind of discuss where we are, what we've accomplished, where we're going. And then also that is a time where we'll be giving out our yearly awards for traffic enforcement, DUIs, and the Employee of the Year for that. And then on February 3rd, I'm hoping to be able to present to the City Council an end-of-the-year report, just reflecting back what took place in 2024, and then kind of the direction of where we're looking to go in 2025. And then I just want to also read, so CPAC, which is the Kendall County Drug Task Force, they recently had served a search warrant in Sandwich where they ended up recovering 800 M30 pills, 7 MDA pills, 160 grams of cannabis, 126 THC edibles. They also located 952 grams of methamphetamine, 240 grams of cocaine, 562 grams of cannabis, 148 psychic mushroom bars, and then another 203 grams of edibles. The offender was taken into custody. Sergeant Meisner, who's sitting in the back, assisted them with that search warrant that they did. They actually did 2 search warrants. One was at a residence, one was at a storage unit. They actually charged the subject with that crime, who was currently on parole for selling drugs too. So he had been transported to the jail. Illinois Department of Corrections issued another warrant for him. But it was a good job by CPAT in establishing that information, and then obviously with Sergeant Meisner working with them, it was a early morning operation that had a very positive outcome. Again, just want to remind everybody of the city dashboard. Lots of information on there pertaining to calls to service, what's kind of going on, and then also our dashboards, our webpage too, tons of information on there. And then just ending with thanking the officers for the work that they're doing day in and day out. Any questions?
Good job with our police. Yes.
I always have questions. When you're doing these campaigns, do you put extra bodies on that, like during that time?
So it's, so that campaign is funded through the Illinois Department of Transportation. So yes, they are paid on an overtime rate, which we then get reimbursed from the state for their overtime rate for that time.
And the officers are good with doing it, I'm
Yes,
guessing.
yes,
Thank
it's
you.
overtime for them.
That's awesome.
Nobody gets mandated, nobody gets forced to do it. It's all voluntarily for them to do, to
Awesome.
make a little extra money.
Well, thank you very much for doing that. Also, your chiefs meetings, how are they going? Like, it's with the public. and
It's with
so
the public, yes.
Well attended?
They're,
How's it going?
overall, I'd say for the population of Sandwich, yes, they're attended, but I think by breaking them up quarterly, hopefully we get a little more, more people to come during that time, since there are not as many as them.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, other questions for Chief Sunny? All right, we'll move on to our engineering report. Kurt Detman, EEI.
All right, first of all, Latham Street road improvements. We just received the updated project cost today from HLR, and we'll be working with the city to prepare the request letter to KKCOM for additional funding. Could be at least $330,000 is where we're looking right now, bare minimum. We'll have to coordinate to see if there's possibly additional funding as far as the disbursement goes, whether it's still gonna be 80-20 or not, so we'll see. Payment management program, latest pay estimate was sent to the contractor for their approval with all the other final costs and liquidated damages. Waiting for their final approval on that. Once the contractor agrees to that number, the retainage can be set, and then later on in the spring, we'll get that evaluated for the final release. So we'll have some coordination still to do for that. Main Street improvements, the final plans for that project were approved today. Actually, well, the 3rd of, we got notice today, but they were approved on the January 3rd. So good news on that. The letting date of March 8th still, as far as I know, is still all good. Downtown street lighting project, still waiting for grant information on that. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we get some word here this month now that we've gotten past the holidays. Lastly, 2025 sidewalk program. There will be some sidewalks from Main Street's design that could not be included. That has to be part of the program, and then also working with the street superintendent to get the rest of the streets in the area there. I think Mechanic is one of them that we'll be working on to try to get the rest of the budget covered for this year and get that worked out. Other than that, that's all I've got.
Okay, questions for Kurt? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our council reports, Alderman Arnett.
Okay, my report, like I talked to Jeff earlier, and I'll let Fred know, this is what it's gonna be about, is the Schomer property. We were given this packet July 11th, 2023, and it's their application. So what I did is when we received this packet, I took time, I went through, I read it. I saw red flags in the packet. I came up to City Hall and talked to Todd Steffens, talked to Jeff. There were some things in it that initially I didn't like. It is what it is. So going through them, under variance requests, owner agrees to adhere to all Sandwich City ordinances, building regulations, and codes, interior and exterior. They haven't done that yet. The thing is they've pretty much done anything they want. We go to, and what raised the red flag to me was in the property description, and growing up here and knowing that property, the creek is called right out in the property description. So when I came up and talked to Todd, we looked at the entire property, the design that was proposed, and you're in a flood zone. I mean, the Quonset hut's in a flood zone, the parking lot that they propose is in a flood zone. The majority of the 26 acres is low. So when you go to the Quonset hut, property owners request the ability to conduct smaller events in the Quonset hut. The problem with Quonset hut comes down to they've improved that Quonset hut over 50%. And improvement of a building in a flood zone starts with the first nail you put in it. Any cost that you add to that piece of property is growing the value of that property. And I don't know if everybody was sent pictures of that or not, but it was just an old nasty Quonset hut. Now it's a really nice building. And you're legally not allowed to do that. It's right in Illinois law, it's in our ordinances. So when it comes down to it, they also talk about having wedding events, food, alcohol, adhering to our city codes, ordinances, our liquor licenses. They just had a wedding there on the 30th of November. At no point did they request anything from the city regarding food licensing. I highly doubt that they got temporary food health department permits for the food that they had out there. They're not following any ordinances we have. They're not following anything the state of Illinois says to do. The thing is it's not just the city of Sandwich in this ballgame. It's our pond we're playing in. But you have the city of Sandwich, you have the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and then ultimately you have FEMA. And that's who decides all this. We have to follow the rules that they set forth. And the thing is, the Shomers are supposed to follow the rules too. We've asked them to do this, do this, do this, do this. They've been told to stop work. They do not stop work. It's a big problem. And the thing is, when you go through, right here are some laws and regulations for Class A flood zones. Permits. You're required to have permits. They do not have permits. Floodway activities. It's illegal to increase or divert floodwaters onto neighboring properties. Anybody knows that when you bring fill in or you create non-permeable surfaces in a Class A flood zone, it's going to push that water somewhere else. And that's what they continue to do. Whether they say they're bringing gravel in to fix their road down below, you're still bringing fill into a flood zone. And you can't do it because every ounce you bring in pushes that water somewhere else. And when you have flood zones, they aren't just designed or designated for the water that could possibly flow in them. A lot of times, FEMA has them designs for the water that's gonna flow as it drains out of other places. It's a retention area essentially, correct? So with what they're doing down there is so far past the rules of maybe it's okay, it's not okay, it's not even close to okay. We go to, and this comes out of section 98, 167 definitions. It talks about, once again, substantial improvement, and this is our section. This is our code and ordinances. The term substantial improvement is considered to occur when the first alteration, any wall, ceiling, floor, or structure, part of the building commences, whether or not the alteration affects external dimensions of structure. Term substantial improvement includes structures which have incurred repetitive loss, substantial actual repair done. So that our 50% isn't just from us. When you go to, the state of Illinois actually has their stuff out online you can grab. Right here, this is Illinois Department of Natural Resources, terms and definitions. Substantial improvement means any reconstruction, rehabilitation, addition, or other improvement of a structure, the cost of which equals or exceeds 50%. It's not allowed. So I know we were gonna come here and talk about this, and I let them know by nobody's mistake or anything, it didn't make it on the agenda, but I know you guys talked about it last time because I read the meeting minutes. So I was just gonna let you know what I found. And in nowhere in our ordinances, nowhere in IDNR, nowhere in anything are they following the law. So we're allowed to fine from $250 a day, not exceeding $750 a day. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to see that meter running like the national deficit at this point, because Darren even come to the table and trying to talk to us and say, but we're doing this. because they're continuing to work on the property. They're continuing to do things in the flood zone. It's not good practice. So that's what I have to say about that piece of property. As far as I'm concerned, if it came to this council at this point, it'd be dead to me, done.
Okay, anything else? Okay, don't disagree with what you've said, it's been an ongoing problem. I believe it's set for the January 15th adjudication. That's the next step for them to go through a lot of their violations. I do agree, they've, I don't think have worked with the city at all on anything that we've asked them to do for any of their hearings to their communication, so we'll let this play out. Great, Alderwoman Erickson.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Alderman Fritsch.
I just have, for council's information, Don and Lesky and I are meeting tomorrow with a representative from Otis Elevators to see if they might want to take over the maintenance of the elevator. The company we have now is nothing but frustration, so that's all I have.
Well, you should have worked with the one before them, right, Rich?
They're never easy to work with.
This is not the first company we've had, so. All right, I will, I don't know what Don's position is in the elevator, because it's really,
I asked him to look into it.
okay,
Don arranged it, so.
all right. Well, it's not really his role, but that's really a building matter, so, okay. All right, anything else, Bill?
No,
All right, Alderwoman Johnson?
Nothing right now, thanks.
Alderman Freiberg?
I was just going to continue on with what Alderman Arnett said. So there's in the packet here that we received, it talks about the fines and penalties, and that goes into the adjudication that's going to happen on January 15th. So it looks like right now, they are sitting at a pretty substantial fine as $65,000 as of December 9th. As it continues throughout the terms here, it calculates out that depending on how everything goes, if it goes to February 2nd, it's going to be $195,500 for this. So the only thing that I hope that the city does, number one, is we calculate our expenses that we've currently put into this so that we can have that at hand when the adjudication process happens, so that we can say, this is what we've put forth, so we can recoup that. Because as we know, the adjudication process can reduce those fines and penalties, but we have to recapture what we've been expensed onto this. Secondarily to that, the people that have been impacted, I don't know what they can do, but they've been impacted as well. I don't know if they come to the, can they show up to the adjudication as well and speak on behalf of this and be a witness to the detriment that this has caused, or?
I mean, yeah, they can, and I don't know if it's necessarily needed, but I guess it wouldn't hurt if they wanted to.
And just to speak what, like Alderman Arnett said, this all came through as a proposed change to the zoning. And it hit a roadblock and it stopped. And the property owners have since decided to just snub their noses at the city and the rules and regulations that we have in place. And, you know, we're dealing with this on other properties currently in town. You know, the houses that are in disarray in town and everything like that. And people are saying, what's the city doing? What's the city doing? We're working hard to try to make this happen on the backside. We're just not trying to vocalize it so that it's not out there. And just to let you guys know, we are working on this. I don't know if you want to come up and speak. I mean, you're not on there, but I'm going to say that as my guest, I'll allow you to ask a question if you need something out of us tonight to research and try to find. Come on up.
Public comment, Fred.
You want to hold it to that?
Yeah.
In public comment, though, we can't talk back to them.
Right.
So I want to
I
be
get
able to
that.
talk.
That's like any other meeting that we had.
But I want to be able to answer them if they have a question, because it was asked specifically
I think they can
to
ask the
be.
questions. I mean, it's like anybody else. We don't let anybody else ask questions of council. That's not how it works.
No, so this is my time, is what I'm getting at.
This is, I mean,
The problem is that they were supposed to have had a spot on the agenda, and by the time that I found out that it was not on the agenda, it was too late to ask for a change.
What do you mean they have a spot? The agenda is the council's agenda. It's not the
I asked to
public's. It's
have the
not- it's not-
Schomer property brought up
Yeah, but
in
it's
the
also
last
people
meeting.
that don't live in the city, you know, that there's no special allowance for them to come before the council, like anybody else. Anybody else comes to us on their public comment, They have their say, we investigate it. I mean, my documentation in 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005 now. I mean, and this is not new to the city. I mean, we've dealt with this property and this individual or individuals for quite a while now.
So when we talked about the solar farm up north, you had the pastor come in and speak on behalf,
I believe he was here under public comment, was he not?
and then we actually talked with him. So will you allow us to have conversation with these individuals then?
I guess, what do you
I-
want?
I don't feel that our neighbors have been getting the answers that they need, and it seems as if we're just drawing this on. So I want to make sure that everything's aired out, and if they have a question, then we can get it solved. It might
I
not
don't-
happen
I
tonight.
guess the thing is some of this is obviously like, we're handling this in a legal manner as well, right? And so, I mean, I guess we can answer I can try to answer some questions, but I guess the other thing is, if we want to sit down and have a meeting, we can do that. I don't know why that.
And that's why I asked at the last meeting if we could just have a point in this meeting to have them come up and we could talk about it. And it was agreed that that could happen. And then it was not on the agenda, and then it was too late by the time that I received my packet to ask for a change.
I guess I thought the question was to sit down and have a meeting. And that's what I'm saying,
It was
yeah,
to
we can
have
do
them
that.
come and speak here.
So I guess my concern is, the thing that makes this difficult is that it's.
We've wasted more time now than what.
It's a city resident versus county residents. That's the big problem we have is.
And
who's
all of
jurisdiction.
these residents spend money in our city.
Yeah, but a lot of people spend money.
I'm
in the city. It doesn't give them any
Mayor,
privilege or anything else.
This is the one time I think we're going to disagree.
the
I-
bottom
I
line,
think
Fred,
it's-
is
I think this
that-
really is.
The bottom line is that they went before us. They did not present their evidence. We gave them another meeting and another meeting, and another meeting. And I told the Ms. Attorney, I'm done. We've gave them ample opportunity to come present what they're requesting. They can refile, and we can start over. Then they didn't, and then they went a different route. I've met with the representative from the state agency. I sat with her for probably 2 hours here to talk about the property and the process is played out, right? The Shomers had a right to apply for a license from the state. The state would give them something in return. We would have to apply our municipal responsibilities to them. Our engineer did that. We sent them a letter back in the spring. They had no response. He attempted to meet with me, and I basically just told him, the bottom line is you comply with the letter or you do not. There's not a meeting, there's not something I'm gonna give you on the side, there's no special ask here. If you don't do these things, then we'll have to proceed down the process that we are. We got no response. And then at some point, like everything else, we had a big list of legal things that we have to go through other properties, and that was in the queue to address this property as well. Plus, we have maintained our conversation with the state. They've maintained it with ours. I understand there's a resident that probably has an in with the place that they work, that maybe some of us don't, that maybe helped out the situation. I understand the neighbors probably don't like each other. That happens a lot of places. But it is playing out correctly, and it is going the way it's supposed to. They had another event. The chief filed the paperwork that he needed to with them. Some things just don't happen that fast.
Mayor,
There's a lot of people that might not
I'd
be
like,
happy,
I'd like
but-
to, I'd like to stop you now because I think you're taking this a little bit.
I'm not. This is the whole
No,
file. I mean, there's nothing.
some of those statements,
new
I have
about
to admit, are not fair. Some of those statements are not fair.
Okay, what's not fair?
Just because one of the neighbors has an in with where he works, that's not what it is. It's going through the process. It's no
Well,
different than.
I guess the thing, I just want to say, we didn't know about any of this until we were contacted by IDNR. I mean, we didn't know about it. And so when we found out about it,
They came through the process with permits.
That was
and it
before.
stopped.
I mean, we were contacted,
And then when they kept working, that's when IDNR got involved. When they broke the rules that we said they shouldn't be doing, that's when everything happened.
IDNR
There's
got
a
involved when
plethora
it
of
was brought to their
emails
attention.
from our building official at the time that are very hard to understand.
yes, and I think that is part of the issue, okay? I mean, that really is part of the issue is,
Yeah, and just so you
different
know, we're airing more
administration.
dirty laundry,
Yeah.
in my opinion, here, right now, than letting Mr. Bohr come up and ask his dean question. So, Dan, during open forum, please come up and talk.
No, you can't, because, sir, you don't have the floor, and you'll have a chance under public comment. That's how it works. Fred, do you? Absolutely, sir, that's how it works. That's how it works, sir,
At
with
the time.
everybody else.
Sorry.
There's a lot of people in the audience, they've done the same thing for meetings for years now. That's the process. Okay, Alderman Cranbrook, is there anything else?
That's it, sir.
Thank you. Alderman Littlebrandt's absent. Alderman Robinson.
Well, it's funny this came up tonight because looking over the agendas this weekend, one of the things that I made a note of is I'd like to go back to the way things used to be, where new business and old business is further up in the agenda. Maybe somewhere, I don't know, after the administrator's report or something, before city department reports, but definitely before council reports. It used to be where council reports were always towards the end, and I felt like we had an opportunity sitting through a meeting and listening to things that have been discussed, old business, new business. We've always had public comment, but to be honest with you, up until a couple of years ago, public comment, a lot of it was people calling in and getting placed on the agenda so they could make us aware of a concern or a complaint or just a plain simple bitch, and then we could address it. We used to have discussions. Sometimes they were very short because tell somebody that, no, there's nothing you can do, that's the rule, that's the ordinance, that's the whatever, plain and simple. Sometimes people just wanted to talk and get it off their chest and be done with it. But I do agree with what Adam's been talking about, Fred's talking about, we need more discussion, period. And it's all good and fine when people come in and say something at public comment at the end of this meeting or the beginning of the council meeting. But if we don't have an opportunity to address it and say something, and sometimes there won't be anything to address, like I said, because there's nothing we can do. Maybe there's no control over the city, but sometimes it's just a matter of telling somebody that and pointing them in the right direction as opposed to just sitting here. Because I think we could solve a lot more problems rather than just listening. I don't think we need to be as formal as what we are in a lot of these things. And I understand that it could turn into a bitch session on certain topics. But we've had that amongst ourselves. We've had that with staff. We've had it with citizens. So again, I'm just throwing it out there, but I think it's something the council should think about, consider, and see if that's something you'd like to do. But like I said, it used to be where just on a plain notepad, sitting at City Hall, was the committee meeting and the council meeting, and obviously the committee meetings or the discussion meetings. And that's when we would have people come in to talk, to discuss things. And then the council meeting was the voting meeting. We get the business done at that point. I'm not saying we need to go back to 4 meetings a month or anything like that, but I think it's working better having the committee of the whole meeting first and then the council meeting so we can actually discuss stuff before voting on it. But I'm just throwing it out there as an opportunity, and I think the topic that has been discussed tonight is a great example of why it would be a good idea to do that. That's all I had.
Now, any council member can add something to the agenda. I was not aware that this was an agenda topic, and I was not asked to place on there myself, so if it didn't get on there, you know, I'm sorry it wasn't there for your discussion, but I was not aware that anybody asked for it.
It was captured in the minutes, but it just wasn't put on the agenda, so.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't discuss it. You can bring up any topic you like under committee, under your Alderman report for discussion, so it doesn't keep someone from bringing up a topic. Rich, or anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman White Cotton?
Yeah, the only thing I've got is another issue with public comments. I received an email, which probably everybody did, from a residence, Jen and Audie Penn. It was just an email referencing the DeKalb County Visitors Bureau statue and stuff that's going on downtown. So I would just like to make, attach it to the minutes if that's possible.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, that concludes the council reports. Old business, wastewater treatment plant project update.
I don't out, see our consultant. So we'll move on to the next item.
Okay. Discussion on the Latham Street project by Hampton, Manzini, and Renwick.
We'll have
You can use this microphone now.
Randy's here.
Tony, you want to slide that microphone over? We'll just,
There you go.
you can sit at the chair and get comfy. You don't have to stand up if you want to sit down, you can.
I'll stand up.
We let Kurt sit down.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate being back here in front of the council. I was last here in October to present for a supplement for the Latham Street construction engineering. At that point in time, we had laid out, the number of hours that were necessary to complete the project. After the council meeting at that point in time, went back with the folks at the city and talked a little bit further about the status of the project and what still is required in order to finish this out. We put together kind of an overall anticipated hours needed to wrap all this up through the state process, which can be time consuming for sure. So basically at the end of it, our original request was for $62,500 thereabout. And now we have come back with another revised one, just under $48,000, based on our conversations with the folks here at the city. So that's a reduction about $15,000 that we are requesting. So I think overall, I think we'll be able to get this project completed based on the anticipated scope that's remaining and get this wrapped up. That's all I have.
Do you have a date in mind that you think will close and complete the project?
I would guess that would still be the final closure of this project would probably still be over a year off. So there's just a lot of paperwork behind the scenes, making sure that the materials used in the project were up to IDOT standards. So working with Berger to get that documentation necessary.
Okay. All right, any questions for?
I don't have any questions. Just comment essentially. Bill and I sat down in a meeting with, it was Jeff, Kurt, Randy, Bill, and Randy Newkirk, where we went over all this. Essentially what comes down to is we knew we were gonna have to pay something. There's no way around it. We have a cost plus fee contract, and we came up with the best number that I think works for both parties. We saved the city a decent chunk of change. We're going to be able to get the letter in to hopefully still get it paid for through KKCOM. But if it wasn't, we were still saving the residents of Sandwich $15,000, $16,000. Because ultimately in the end, we didn't agree with some of it and we came to a consensus on it. So that's, I just want to let you guys know that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for us? I know you've got some other projects going, Main Street.
No, I think Kurt mentioned that Main Street was approved. So it should be on the March letting, which I think is actually really good this year. January letting could be a little different. IDOT has implemented some new procedures for contractors. So hopefully those all get worked out before the Main Street project is let, so.
Okay, I plan on being at KKCOM meeting, so I'll hand carry the letter, plus we always send it in advance, so.
All right.
Great, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to news business, we have discussion about section 98-145 is the city code. Municipal code for city of Sandwich is in respect to airport area developments.
In meeting with an owner of an adjacent property, this came up as a discussion just because it is in our code that that our ordinance, basically with the fly zones and things like that with the runway, there are limitations as to what can be built on the property adjacent to it or at the end of the runway. Actually, right now, the way it's written in our ordinance, I believe it's something 1 foot tall can be built on that property. So what we did find out, though, was that we don't actually have any jurisdiction over that property or the airport, really. I mean, we do in that we could issue a permit to build something on that property, but that would also cause the airport to no longer be able to legally have a runway. They would disqualify it from that perspective. So I don't know if that was the intent when the council put that into place, is to make sure that that was in our ordinance so that we didn't accidentally allow something in there. But There is a difference between a commercial airport and then it's a private airport that's out there now. So if we did get rid of it, we would be able to allow something to be built there. We wouldn't recommend a gas station or anything like that. That would obviously be a possible problem, but certainly something to be able to make use of that corner there at Church Street and Gletty Road. So there is water that runs there. That was run in 1979 as part of being able to annex the airport. We used that property for that purpose at that point in time. So now it's just one of those things where that property has sat there for a long time and there really hasn't been anything to be done with it because of the height requirements in our ordinance. Did you want to talk about it more, Cassandra?
Just a little bit. So a big part of this is it all depends on the Federal Aviation Administration. So I looked up the standards and the minimum requirements for runways. What I didn't know at the time was the length of this runway. And so there's all sorts of calculations that you have to do to determine what the obstacle-free zone would be and what the runway protection zone would be and where the building restriction lines would be. And it's based on how long your runway is. And so it's possible that we could change some of these numbers and reduce some of them. The one thing it looks like, and I don't want to put my 100% stamp of approval on this, is that the ratio has decreased. A lot of it it looks like we have a 20-to-1, and I had seen that there was like a 10-to-1 approach slope in some of the newer recommendations. So I think what we just need to do is, I did find on a website, I'll have to confirm what the approximate length of the runway is, and then fit that into the tables that the FAA provides to determine if we can reduce some of those, because it's supposed to be 200 feet beyond the end of the runway, and then it depends on, the departure and approach and things like that. So it's possible we can change it to allow for something there. I just have to do the numbers, and it's a lot of math, so I'll do what I can.
Bottom line, we're trying to find a way, if we need to adjust the ordinance or the restrictions to make the property more attractive, that it can be developed. That's all it comes down to. Okay, so we'll continue to pursue this to see if we can come back to council. We wanted to make you aware of the owner's conversation with us, as well as our economic developer's conversation with that individual about trying to find a way to make the property more marketable. All right, anything else, Jeff, on A?
No, that was it.
Okay, B, over the holiday break, I had a chance to meet with Nate Kloster. He's the CEO of the Voluntary Action Center up in Sycamore. And he asked that I come up and meet with him regarding some of their challenges to fund their Meals on Wheels program, specifically for the municipalities in DeKalb County. They serve other counties as well, LaSalle and Kendall. They placed before us a request for additional funding starting in our new budget year of $18,600. I told them it was a significant jump from what we funded before, which is $0. Now, they've been self-sustaining, but the economy's made it difficult. So I basically met with them. I brought the information back to council for you to review that. My biggest concern is that when someone says Sandwich, they're either looking at the area code, which could be outside of Sandwich, or strictly the residents of Sandwich. And I reminded him that our tax dollars are only for the use of our citizens. I can't provide those for somebody in the township or somebody else in the county. So he did say that he had the best data that he could find from what they compile. And I told him that I would be taking this to council, and council can move this to the budget committee, which Alderman Kreinbrink chairs, to see if there's a place for some funding and what council might want to support. So you got a list of all the other local governments. As you can see, it looks like they serve a considerable amount of meals to us, even more than Sycamore. And one of the questions I had from was, we have a lot of food pantries here. And the issue is this isn't about getting food at the food pantry. This is about having a dietary plan that they provide and cook and serve, and they need that food in advance. So anyway, council is there for you to look at. You can decide if you want to provide some assistance to them, but that is their request of the municipality. Questions from council?
Now, this is for the Meals on Wheels stuff.
It is,
right?
yes.
Okay, so that's more for like the shut-ins and the
It's for,
ones that can't get out. and-
yeah, those that qualify. So they have an age and some other restrictions that they have that makes them qualified. But yes, those are for those that have limited opportunity to either cook for themselves or obtain meals.
It also serves as a welfare check,
Yes.
because I've delivered them, and if they don't
Wellness
answer the
check.
door,
Right?
they call them
Wellness.
and make sure they're okay.
Let's check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, very good. And they are also looking for volunteers. So if anybody would like to volunteer their time, you can contact them to volunteer. I do have the contact information.
Would these meals also be included as far as the everyday meals that they're serving at the senior center?
No, those are separate, so that's a different program, ran by the same organization, but that's different there. Those are kind of, they take donations or payment there. Some of these individuals may also make a donation or contribute, but it's a different program. So that's kind of like dine-in, and this is delivery, is the way to look at it.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, anything else on B? All right, moving on to item C. So Alderman Robinson had brought to my attention that we had a business in town that may have had illegal gaming. As the liquor commissioner, I am, I guess, defaulted as the gaming commissioner. So Rich had provided the information, and I had looked at the machines, and I made contact with the owner, and they ended up being what is called a sweepstake gaming machine. So I have a couple comments on that for you, and then if the chief or the attorney has anything. So here's what I'd like to say about it. So there was a newspaper article June 5th of 2023 that said it was Chicago's latest unregulated and untaxed loophole in the gaming law that undercuts municipalities that have legal gaming that have gone through the process. So my concern is that there is no municipal license for that particular type of gaming. It doesn't go through the Illinois Gaming Board, in which there would be a license from the municipality. We would determine who gets them based upon their qualifications. There's nothing that flows back to us through our gaming revenue. This is the latest revenue that we've had. We're kind of on track for last year. It doesn't look like anymore, but it's consistent. And so my concern is that the machines don't state that they're a sweepstake, right? So you might go in there with the intention you're gonna play the machine and you have a chance of winning or losing money on how gaming machines work. There's no stanchions that say 21 and older. It's just not very clear like you'd see in our gaming parlors or locations that would have gaming. So I find it very misleading. I did talk to the owner. He asked me if he should unplug the machines, and I said, I don't know that they're legal or not legal. Ironically, they end up being legal, but we don't really address that in our gaming ordinance. So I did speak with our gaming agent and spoke to him about the machines, which is the process that I normally go through, whether it be liquor or it be gaming. Our attorneys looked into it a little bit, and I think it's probably best for us to be proactive at the municipal level and that we take action to ban these types of machines in our community. And I think that provides fairness, whether you believe in gaming or not, provides fairness to those that have legal gaming in our community that come and get a license, that tell their patrons this is a game of chance. There's no one underage here, and this is what you can win or lose. I still don't understand, even looking at the sweepstakes, what you could win out of the deal. It's very unclear. I think it's just simply misleading and not something that benefits our community. Chief or Attorney Gottschalk, any comments?
I'll just add, so I was talking to some others about this, and these machines have actually been around for a very long time. The issue now is that they have changed the look of them, so they have some of the same games that the gambling machines have. So I think the probably easiest, most recognizable one would be the
Tyson.
Buffalo, yes, the Buffalo
You
game.
can play it right down here at the end of the street.
Yeah.
And you can play it at the other place, and it looks like the exact same game.
Yes, it looks very similar. So there are actually now lawsuits against these companies because they have modeled them to mimic a video gaming machine. The issue is there's no regulation, absolutely none. The state, the country, no one regulates these. You technically can play for free. One of the things I saw though is that and I don't know that this owner has done that, but a lot of people, you can also put money in it if you want for extra chances at the sweepstakes. And you can win coupons that you can go cash in on the website. One of the things that, at least in, I think Forest Park was one of them, and then another one, I can't remember exactly, but what it was happening was the owners were buying the coupons from the customers, so it kind of became gambling in such a way. And so the Gaming Commission, now they're not, you know, the lawmakers, but their position is that they're illegal. But it's kind of, it's been around for a really long time, and it kind of was ignored for a while, but now they're coming back, really mimicking the video gaming machines. So now there are, you know, people, citizens that are suing because they're being tricked. They think that they are going into a gambling, you know, it's a gambling machine, and they have a chance to, you know, win based on the odds that are on a gambling machine. And so what I have found were a couple different examples of some ordinances that prohibit these sweepstakes machines. It is something that we should consider. And the main reason is, aside from the way it impacts other entities that have the gaming machines legally and have followed all the proper requirements, it's also a way to protect our citizens from not knowing what they're getting themselves into when they decide that they're gonna play the sweepstakes machine.
Deceiving.
Yeah, it is very deceiving. I mean, I had never seen one like the picture that was provided to me, and it really does look, it maybe looks like an older version of a gambling machine, but it looks like your typical video gaming. It has the same kind of games and stuff like that. So,
Screen, you know, just like anything else you'd see.
so,
Did you play the game, Rich, or know anybody? that-
No.
oh, you
no,
didn't play?
I did not.
Rich
I-
was undercover, just so you know. He did a
Nope,
good job.
I walked in when I got back to town after Christmas and.
It was a
took
good
some-
lead, panned out.
Took some pictures, but I found it interesting that one of the machines does have an Illinois Department of Revenue sticker on it for a coin-operated device.
Oh.
So I'm of the opinion that we grow a pair and we just have them turn the machines off. And if nothing else, they don't have a license from the city of Sandwich for a coin-operated amusement.
We
And
looked
if
into
that's
it.
what it is, it's an amusement. I know it's cheesy, I know it's cheap, but there's our reason to pull the plug. They got it without, and we don't give them one.
Yeah. So I looked through the coin operated, right? There's nothing that specifically addresses that kind of machine, and if you can play for free, you're really not using coins unless you up the ante.
But even the coin operated now, just with the way laws change and stuff, they're really not coin operated. They're dollar bills and everything else.
My concern is it doesn't keep it from popping up at the next place. So I'd rather go the route of just amending their ordinance or adding to it. And in the meantime, I'll ask them if they want to remove them, but it doesn't mean they won't disappear for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years.
Well, I still think that the coin operated, if it's coin operated for the state of Illinois, it's good enough for me, coin operated for Little Old Sandwich. So, like I said,
But ours are specific, right? So it deals with a jukebox, it deals with a pool table. It doesn't address this type of, our coin operated says when you see machine gaming, go see our gaming part of our ordinance, and it doesn't address that in there. So we just,
gaming is different, and the other ones are, but no different than a pinball. We require people to have a license for a pinball machine, for air hockey, for all of those. So
it was a little
again,
different because you got to figure out first if it's legal or not. That's what I told you, right? I had to make a call to see if this is a
No,
legal device.
and-
that we
and I
made.
get it, and
We never had
obviously-
it here.
nobody knows, other than the state Department of Revenue is saying it's legal. They're getting their money, we're not getting our money. So again, I think we could easily just put a stop to it. If we need to spend money to create an ordinance, add a little bit of wording or whatever to an existing one.
Yeah, we'll just amend
So,
it.
so it's not, but again, I don't think we need to wait until we create an ordinance to do it. I think we could shut it down right now because they don't have a license from the city of Sandwich.
Yeah, when you called me too, the clerk was off, so I had
No,
no
I
idea.
know.
I did pull the record, I looked through the file,
No,
I couldn't tell.
and I appreciate you doing and getting back to me and everything, and I'm not saying, I'm just saying now after the fact,
Yeah, after the fact, they wouldn't get a license, they'd just simply get a fine from us like anyone else, but we were still looking into it even today, I was still researching it, so.
Is there a number actually like a identifying number?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I have the picture, I'm trying to find it right now.
30771.
Yeah, you can't see it on my picture, you can see it on
It
Rich's.
expires July 31st, 2025,
Okay,
so.
Yeah, and that's a different call to IDAR about that machine versus the other, so.
can you send that to me, please, Rich?
Yeah,
Okay, so my advice is just simply take the ordinance of gaming and just amend that prohibits these sweepstakes machines, because I guarantee you, they do the same thing for Texas Hold'em, they do the same thing for other types of things, other games. I'm gonna tell you right now, you can go into another establishment in this community, you can sit down and play probably a sweepstakes Texas Hold'em game. And that's a state license, that's not something we regulate, but they're out there. They have lots of games, it just isn't video. They find a way to get around everything, so. Anyway, that's my advice. If council likes that, we'll have the attorney draft up an addition to our ordinance, and we can just simply bring it back at the next meeting. You can decide if you want to waive first reading and pass it, but that's my recommendation, is just simply ban it in all forms.
can we still have somebody stop by since they don't have a license for it
Stop by.
there and
Yeah.
have them unplug, or?
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
think,
told the owner I wasn't going to get back to him until I could find out if they were legal or not, and if there was anything that we had to do or not do on our end before I told them to, stop a business activity.
I mean, if they have obviously applied from the state for some sort of corn-operated, designation, then I guess, I would argue that they are then in violation of our ordinances and don't have our license. The obvious issue there is that's an easy fix, and I don't know if we want to allow that. Because, right, it's a pretty small fee for a
Yeah.
coin-operated thing. And so I think that's the concern, right? If we say you don't have a license for this, then the next thing they're gonna do is they're gonna come in and say, can I get a license for this? And then, are we then essentially authorizing it?
I wouldn't think so. I don't think we would authorize it. And what I'm saying is.
Just saying by default, by giving them a license by default, are you
Right.
saying that you encourage this type of game?
And I'm just saying, I wouldn't issue one for that. I mean, we can determine what we do or don't issue a license for.
And that's, I just looked, our coin-operated
It's very slim.
is very vague. And so I don't know what, I'd have to look closer at the actual statute on the
Well-
Illinois statute.
Whatever's the cheapest. If it's cheapest, rather than you spending time looking into something,
It's cheapest because if we
one
ban it, then
sentence
they'd have to
thing.
get real machines if you gave them, and we'd get the revenue from that.
And then we can impose a penalty for having them, so
but again, they
essentially.
wouldn't be able to have the real machines there because we don't have an
We don't allow 'em at
ordinance
gas
that allows
stations.
it at
That's
gas
right.
stations.
That's right.
Yes.
Because it's still, unless it's changed, has to be for on-premise consumption of
Consumption.
alcohol.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, which we told the owner when they bought that establishment that they were not going to get
I
gaming
think
machines,
that's-
and this is the workaround.
I was gonna say, that's the biggest issue here, is that they've asked for that, they've been told that's a no, and then, you show up and you see this.
I can't cite them either because I don't have the authority that chief of police would have to. I can only do liquor.
Well, as a punishment, take away their liquor license.
Could do that.
Yeah?
Bet you they'd pull those machines right away if
Bet you
you
they
pull
would
their
too.
liquor license or their
Only thing I can
tobacco
do.
license.
Yep.
And they do have one, I looked that up as well, they do have their cigarette license. All right, so that's my recommendation. If you like, we'll just bring the ordinance just to ban sweepstakes in general, of that type. It seems to be the same companies that do this for all types of gaming.
And, I'll just be honest, I'm gonna basically steal it from Forest Park, so it'll take me 10 to 15 minutes.
Sound like a plan? We'll move it
Do
next
it.
meeting. Okay. All right, I believe that concludes all of our activities and items for new business. Any announcements? Jeff? Tony, do you have the public comment? Thank you. Jeff, announcements? Do you have any?
They're on the second meeting, other than we do have a adjudication on the 15th, the 20th, believe there's a zoning board of appeals and then a plan commission meeting, and then there's a zoning board of appeals, I believe, on the 28th.
Can you announce the time for the adjudication so audience can hear?
It's 1 o'clock.
Okay. All right, first up is Tristan Ridlow. Mr. Ridlow, you have 5 minutes once I tell you can start, and make sure the microphone's on, please.
So I just want to make something very clear. So and Mayor Latham, you made a comment, you know, that a neighbor has some inside track, or obviously I'm not verbatim, with the DNR. So yes, I'm that DNR individual. But to be very clear, my position is the streams and river biologist for Northeast Illinois, which includes the entirety of the Fox River and all the tributaries. And one of those runs through my backyard and runs into Little Rock Creek, which is along the Schomer property. So it's my job, when I see somebody violating floodplain regulations, it's my job. I didn't call in a favor. It's my job to call down to Springfield, to call the floodplain manager, to say, hey, I see something that's awry here. So there's no favors being done. There's no handshakes, no nothing like that. It's me doing my job. It just happens to be happening in my backyard. And I just wanted to make that clear to everybody here and have it on the record. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. All right, next up is Dan Bohr. Mr. Bohr? All right, sir, same thing. You have 5 minutes. I'll start the clock when you begin your comments.
First of all, with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, if you would look at the tax rolls, we are not citizens of Sandwich, but our tax dollars support the Sandwich school system and the fire protection district, and most of our taxes go to the city of Sandwich. The other thing that I would like to know, if someone from the city, we've seen pictures from the outside. I would love to see what they have done to the inside of that building, because I live right behind it and I see traffic constantly. So if possibly someone from the city could address that also, I would definitely appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, and last up is Amanda Whitlow, unless there's someone else that'd like to make comment. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Hello, Amanda Woodlow, thank you. Echoing what Dan said, while we are not considered residents of the city of Sandwich and we don't have a mailing address that states that we are part of Sandwich, out of my $6,600 tax bill, $4,600 is paid to the City of Sandwich Schools District. So I believe it would be advantageous if the city would try to work with us on this matter. And to address the city attorney's statement that you did not know violations were happening at the property on 4876 Sandy Bluff Road, I would like to point out that on 8/21 of 2023, I directly emailed Mayor Latham a 5-page document with pictures detailing the harassment we were receiving and the violations that the residents at 4876 Sandy Bluff Road were doing. The mayor's response email stated he was traveling and would get back to me, and I followed up on 8/28 of 2023. On 8/29 of 2023, the mayor responded that my document was forwarded to his legal team. So I do believe you are aware of the situation. We have tried not to waste the city and the public's time coming to public meetings, and we have tried to reach out directly in order to have open communication and dialogue, but that was not afforded to us because, again, we don't have a City of Sandwich mailing address. So thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else wish to make public comment? Okay, at this point in our meeting, it is there a request by council to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Alderman Robinson, is there a second? Alderwoman Johnson, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, our meeting is adjourned.